All right, welcome everyone. We're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we're here for Legend of the Galactic Heroes, episode 29.
Okay.
All right, so we've got ourselves in a very a specific setup with the Empire.
Yeah.
And they are on their way to war.
Yep.
They are
To finish
going.
this war.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
This is going to be a potentially two-pronged attack with a potential subterfuge alliance with Fejon, like maybe in the works in the background right now. We haven't seen any proof of it being completed.
Right. And some of Reinhardt's subordinates are, kind of like, what are we doing? Why are we moving around like this?
Mm-hmm. So things are probably being kept in some ways even secret from the audience.
Right.
Yeah.
But we got some wonderful backstory
Yes.
last episode with Mittermeier and Ruhenthal.
Mm-hmm.
Showed the other dynamic duo on the Empire side and their past and their bonding moments and all that stuff.
We could use one of those right now.
Yeah.
Because it's going to take a while for us to warm up to the probable eventual dynamic duo, which will be Oberstein and Reinhardt. But for now, let's have a little bit more of a wholesome one at the time being. And,
we lost Kierheis after all. There's a bit of a void.
Right. Mittermeier and Ruhenthal couldn't be more opposite from each other in terms of their upbringings and their backstories.
Yeah.
Which is interesting that they are so fast and tight, like together as terms of friends.
Attract, I guess.
But not only that, the fact that there's little subtle things that they do for each other in order to look out and in some ways support the other, which is really cool to see because those are things that are shown, not things that are necessarily getting exposited to us through the backstory.
And the way that they're supporting each other isn't even necessarily in ways that the other person fully appreciates because they're so different.
Right.
Mittermeier tries to support Ruhenthal in certain ways. Ruhenthal maybe doesn't necessarily even want that kind of support at this point in time.
That's true. So, yeah, we've got ourselves a setup on the Empire side. On the Alliance's side, Yang is maybe just now starting to feel the lull in a foreboding way.
Yeah, the quiet before the storm.
Yeah, realizing that, okay, they resolved things with the Braunschweig situation.
Yep.
We've resolved our stuff. What happens now?
Right.
I'm here at the front lines.
But those might become the back lines, and then once I leave to go fight on the front lines, then the back lines that were the front lines will then get taken over because if things don't go better for the Alliance, I get the feeling Yang is going to be in a situation where he can't make a winning strategy other than to just
losing
fall back
less.
and retreat. Yeah, exactly.
Strategic withdrawals and really clever application of resources.
Yeah.
So that's the situation, and without further ado, let's get into it. All right, everyone, now be sure to go check out the reaction portion of the video in the description below, and then come back here for the discussion. All right, we touched base with everyone.
Yep. Yeah. And touched base. Yeah, and the base is going to potentially be moved and hopefully not atomized and destroyed utterly. But there's subterfuge afoot. The game is on, and it's not as straightforward as we originally thought.
Right. So new bits of information primarily is that the Church of Terra, or the Terra Church, is actually
rules Fejon.
in control of Fejon. The Landshur, a.k.a. our boy Adrian Rubinsky, is actually kind of an underdog.
Right.
In that
he got instated by the Church of Terra.
Correct. They put him there to replace the previous one because of reasons.
Yeah.
Which means that in some ways they have holding a above him basically a roof of stalactites.
Right, a sword of Damocles. I am kind of expecting at some point for the High Bishop to say to Rubinsky, I find your lack of faith disturbing.
Right. Just more Star Wars references in general, since they are kind of like the Emperor Palpatine faction. If Emperor Palpatine was not in the ruling ruling faction group.
I gotta say, I absolutely love that the Dark Cloak is not like I'm being an evil dark master and going on my Illuminati call with you. It's, no, this is our regular garb. So one of the monks just is walking in his, like, I am a brooding, obviously evil guy. And he just walks past the people in, like,
into
the waiting room.
Into, like, a dentist waiting room kind of style thing. And then gets immediately taken to the back. He skipped the line. That was comical.
Oh, man.
I loved it. But one of the things I really liked about it was that it tells us how brazen they are within the Fejon Dominion.
Yes.
Because, in some ways, I would say, the Fejon Dominion is not seen as a threat by the Alliance or the Empire in a direct way.
Sure.
So while in the Empire and Alliance there are, arms of the Church of Terra, they get treated as basically, like, radical kind of religious fanatics.
And the Fejon, they have that weird, earth cult or death cult or earth cult.
Right.
But, hey, they're mainly a business center and they're helpful to both of us. And
tax-free, yeah. What I really like what they were doing here is we're bringing up the conversations that will lead to establishing systems of government for the benefit of these select few that are the evil masterminds behind the scenes. Because if we're going to have actual, I would say, like, evil antagonists, in this much more nuanced, I would say, gray, like shades of gray kind of conflict, where both sides are very much, like, perpetuating a war that is pointless.
Right. There's good and bad individuals on each side, but as far as the organizations go, it's not so clear-cut.
Right.
The Church of Terra is probably the one that actually is the most clear-cut, because I think they were literally introduced as a death cult, where they just want everyone to die.
Right.
So, but we did see the actual face of the guy that was talking to Rubinsky, so maybe that's an angle of it where they're starting to bring more nuance to their organization.
Right. In some ways, what they are, though, is they're a group of humans that have, collectively, maybe on some level, projected it out more as a brand thing rather than an actual thing that they believe. That, they're called to some dark higher purpose. And because of that, then it gives us a little bit of uniformity in understanding their motivations. But I liked that we saw this bishop, not the Grand Bishop, but this regular bishop, basically, have a conversation with Rubinsky, because we saw Rubinsky trying to set him up into specific kind of environments and circumstances where he would then be able to, learn more about these people, figure out how to manipulate them. And the guy was just deadpan. No, this is what's important. This is what's important. I have to go. Bye. Don't even try to think about, like, you having any kind of freedom or authority here. We own you.
That was really interesting, because when we saw the Grand Bishop and Rubinsky on their call earlier, it was something where it's we're in alliance with each other.
Yes.
Okay, that's one thing.
Right.
But having it be something where the bishop saying, we own you, and Rubinsky sort of, going along with it, not debating it, right? No. Debating it in private, right? And being like, no way I'm going with those guys, right? But keeping up the appearance that, yes, I serve you. You got me here, you can remove me. Absolutely. I am your loyal subject, right? That was really interesting to me, because he was Lex Luthor up until this point. No one owns Lex Luthor, right? Lex Luthor owns you, right?
Right.
So the fact that there's someone else that would come in and basically just be like, don't get too tall now, that was really interesting to me.
Or we'll find someone that, will do it in a way that we like more. What I liked about this, though, was that Rubinsky has enough political power that he will end up really shaping the galaxy before he ends up getting either ousted, killed, replaced, or whatever. So he has his own conflicts that are independent of the Alliance and Empire. That's just another layer of dimension to the story. It makes things rather interesting. On Yang's side of things, we see now that the snakes are basically starting to reveal their heads with regards to him. Now, what's good about this is that you get a strong weed whacker Those heads of grass and heads of snakes go along together.
Yep.
Problem is that snakes are really quick, and if there's multiple of them, you better not turn your back on any of them. You better get them all facing the front side of you.
Exactly.
Otherwise, you're going to have a situation like Kazerne brought up where you're just going to randomly get poisoned by a drink one day, and it doesn't matter what you think about the future anymore.
Because Yang is aware that he's surrounded by snakes, and he's kind of just saying... He's kind of in denial in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah.
Of like, hey... I can still live my quiet life. I can go retire on a farm somewhere or whatever. I can still just, you know, drink my brandy with my tea and everything and just hang with Julian and do whatever. And it's not too big of a deal.
And be basically the strength of the Alliance military's, like, commanding, you know, force near, you know, Iserlon. But yeah, he is very much not a fan of going into the political sphere of things, because of how much he loathes it and the military, but also how much he loathes the idea of having that much power.
But he has that power now,
He
right?
does.
Like, he's been put into that situation, and while trying to avoid getting put into that situation before was helpful, right? Now it's something where it looks a lot more like shirking his duties. His comment about, like, oh, I still need to be able to take my afternoon naps. I remember when they were trying to get in touch with certain people in the Alliance military when the whole invasion was going on, and that afternoon nap really didn't help very much.
That's true.
You know?
Yeah.
Like,
and also the fact that he's not doing anything directly overt allows situations where characters can come in and go, what do you think he's really doing, though?
And because no one just does nothing with that kind of power.
Right. So you need to be worried about him, and then people get to fill in the blanks with their own worst fears and suspicions.
Yeah. It feels like something where it's like, it's quiet. Too quiet. And like where like Yang is doing such a good job of just being like a regular dude that is in this position that it's more concerning than if they knew that he was corrupt or something like that, right?
For the people that are his snakes, his threats.
Right. Because then that would at least be something that they understand. But if it's not, then it's something that where they see nothing there, and then they have to project, but then they're thinking, okay, then he must be some next level mastermind, because if we're seeing no signs of him being dirty, then, you know, like, then, all right, when he took out the, you know, all the parts of the defense system, that must have had something to do with it.
I think it's not that they see that he's a next level mastermind. It's the things like what Trunit was saying, where if he decides to do something, we don't want him to do this large list of things that would be bad for us. So can we focus him and get him busy with something that then keeps him from the political sphere, or keeps him from, you know, taking over the rule of the Alliance? All things that if they knew him, he has no interest in doing.
Not at all.
So I don't think it's that they see him as necessarily a mastermind for anything. But they're starting to have seeds for that planted, specifically from Fejon, with the commissioner. That's a localized
and
thing.
Regardless, you got to plan for the worst, right? You know, trust but verify. Like, even if they weren't snakes, right? It would be in their best interest to basically be like, hey, yeah, Yang's a good guy, but just, you know, let's keep our bases covered, you know, and literally and figuratively.
Yeah. And we got a little bit of an update on things with Trunit. Trunit specifically is reestablishing a lot of his political control within the military. Kubersley and our boy Bukak were brought up as being ones that are against his, you know, power in a lot of ways. They're ones that Yang can rely on, but they're just two men. And they are in high positions of authority. But eventually it'll just be a thing where we're going back to the point of military dictatorship.
And if nothing else, and it's not even something where it's like they'll be, you know, killed off or something. No, eventually they're going to have to retire. Like, you know,
or it's just a thing of where it's like, yes, cool, you control 30 to 40% of the military. We control the remaining percentage.
Let's make it so that doesn't become 70%. Yeah.
We have Fejon being the huge focus of the plot this episode, but Yang got, in my opinion, one of the most powerful sequence of scenes with regards to character development and characterization this episode via Kazerne and Julian.
Right.
Julian, we got to see a little bit more of how he was brought into the fold here.
Yep, that was great. Seeing Julian with the little kitten Admiral.
Yeah.
That was absolutely wonderful.
Do you wonder if Admiral was named that like once he got fat, or was it like like he started off as a petty officer, and then as he got fatter and fatter, he got promoted to a new name.
I would not at all be surprised if Julian was like if Julian just named the cat Admiral, right? Because why not?
Right.
But also, if that seems like the kind of name that Yang would give it,
Yes, it does.
It's like, yes, you fat lard that just sits around and lazes everywhere.
I'm going to call you Admiral.
Like, because
like, Yang, isn't that a self-diss a little bit? Details.
But that was back when, that would have been back when he was like way lower rank, right?
Yes,
and he had to answer to all these people where he's like, oh my God, they're so stupid. Why can't they just listen and, get off their high horse for once, right?
Right.
So I could definitely see him.
And Julian would definitely, I would say, by osmosis, pick up a lot of the mannerisms and perspectives that Yang would have regarding the military.
Exactly,
so I'm sure
he
would
his guardian.
Right. I'm sure he would also consent to the name of Admiral for the cat as well. But let's bring up the relationship between Julian and Yang here. Yang has constantly brought up about how, hey, Julian, you're going to be a soldier? That's great. Be a pretty ineffective one, please, because I don't want you to get too wrapped up in this whole thing. Just stay safe. Stay alive, and live your life, man. Like, this war shouldn't go on forever, and I don't want you to get wrapped up in it forever. And then we have Kazerne, who's basically like, yeah, you know how he's your guardian? I need you to be his guardian, actually.
Yep.
And I think Julian very much relishes the idea of doing that because of how much he feels he owes to not only Yang, but to Kazerne as well.
So, and he already has been Yang's guardian in a couple situations, right? He stopped an assassination attempt for one already, right? In addition to just generally looking out for him, maybe not putting quite as much brandy in his tea as he would like, you know, things like that. Yeah. Also, I gotta say, Yang's whole talk to Julian about like be as ineffective of a tool as possible or whatever, or do as little damage as possible, really made me think of Ron Swanson with his whole talk of like, Tom is everything I admire in a Parks employee. He gets nothing done. He's lazy, like is Yang just military Ron Swanson? Like,
no. I think what it is that Yang has this. Yang is one of the few people in this show who is probably constantly in a state of like this is not literal
conflict,
but I'm going to say internal conflict. I'm going to take it in a literal sense that's not actual, but stomach pain. The idea that there are millions of people dying, and then there's also this overwhelming portion of the Alliance's population that is for a free democracy that is devoted to the military.
And what price do we pay for the freedom to not get involved?
Right, and then he looks at history and just goes, this whole thing makes me sick to my stomach. I need another glass of brandy,
Yeah.
And then he sees the one innocent young boy that's in the, kind of military kind of
this smile
area here, but he is not when he first joins him in the military yet.
Right.
He's just a young boy that came from a broken family, and he's going to take care of him. That's awesome. That's awesome. I didn't know that whole thing with Julian, the fact that Julian came from a broken home.
I thought Yang was saying that he came
I'm pretty sure he said Julian.
It was probably a pronoun thing where it wasn't quite like where he was probably talking about Julian, and I just assumed he was talking about himself.
I can double check here, but there's a point where he's having the chess game with Kazerne, and he's saying, hold on, where is it here? Am I really such a half-assed guardian? Oh, Julian already lost his parents once.
Oh.
And as half-assed a guardian as you are, be shame for him to lose you too. I remember, is this such a half-assed guardian?
Yeah.
You think you were good? And who was it that forced Julian on such a half-assed guardian 4 years ago?
The banter was great.
And then he's like, how about
another glass of brandy? And he's like, you like, perfect.
Oh, no, you're right. So I was right in that Julian lost both his parents, but it was actually Yang who was saying, he's like, I'm not a perfect guardian, I get it. I'm single and was raised in a broken home.
Yeah. Because because we've seen Yang in like military school and things like that, right? We've seen that stuff, But we haven't seen anything about his family. Now, maybe it's something where it's not shown because it's not something that Yang really wants to think about, so it's not in focus, right? Whereas in the case of, say, Reinhardt or Kierheis, it's something that is very prominent on the forefront of their thoughts, right? So it's natural that we get it very early on, right? Whereas with Yang, it's more like, oh, these are my buddies in the military that I've met and things like that. You know, this is Jessica and all that. But not so much the other stuff. But the fact that it's being brought up here, I'm really curious because Yang is so much a person, you know, like he's such a regular guy in a very irregular situation that I'm really curious where he came from, because that can give a bit more context to his I'm a regular guy thing that he holds on to so strongly.
Right.
Because that's not a normal thing, right? Like, as much as I would hope to be Yang in that kind of situation, right? I have no idea, but that is something that is exceptional about Yang. He's exceptional in his ability and his desire and will to remain just a good person. So,
and I would say that it's a bit of a tricky situation, because I don't think Yang sees himself as a good person.
Sure,
I don't think he's into self-loathing necessarily.
He tries to be as good a person as he can.
Well, right. But I don't think it's about being necessarily a good person. I think it's that he does not want to be here. He does not want to do any of this. When a character's motivation is not in line with their actions, there is internal conflict.
Right.
The human heart at war with itself.
Yeah,
so
that's the only thing
why would he want to then get involved in a war with all these other people when he's literally involved in his own internal conflict? So I think it's about actually separating himself as much as he can from the situation where he has to bear and observe the burden of his position.
Okay.
And then he ends up going to take naps. He ends up kind of delegating a lot of this stuff. Because he drinks a bit, you know.
Right. He sees the failures in which he has not been able to fully minimize the damage. Because him not liking the military, awesome, love it. I can totally see where that's coming from.
Okay.
And yet he's still here, right?
Well, he doesn't have any choice.
Well, no.
What do you mean here? What do you mean here? Sorry.
So he joined the military for a reason. Now, granted, there were all the things that sort of like make it a lot more appealing for young people in the Alliance to join the military. Right. Granted, totally get it, right? But even when he was in the military, there would still be those things where he would try and make things go better, right? It's the arrogance of believing that maybe you can do some good in the world, right?
Right.
And that's where I feel like the real conflict comes in, because if it was just that he's in this position now, so he can't really change that, right? Yeah. Because of the things that he's done that's led him to this point. But there was a point where he was thinking about the military and how much he hated it and all the lessons of history and things like that.
Yeah.
And he still decided to join, right? You know, he thought that maybe like back when we first saw him, that okay, I'm not going to be forceful about, you know, reminding the superiors like that there's a better way to do things, but I'm still going to tell them just in case they take it, you know. I'll do enough to basically be worth my paycheck and then be done.
Yeah, an example of this, what you're talking about, is shown within the flashback with Frederica Greenhill when she saw him basically take charge in a situation and save tons of people's lives. Now, what I think is maybe the thing that I see as a little bit of an idealist within him is that he would love to be in a world without war, or a galaxy without war. And yet he understands maybe in some ways that there's only a couple solutions to ending the war. It's the eternal peace,
which
without the destruction of either side. And then there's the destruction of either side,
which, and even in both of those situations, it's temporary, right?
Right. And then there's basically the unknown, basically other kind of collection of options within that kind of small percentage possibilities. And that whole area there, we don't see him exploring that. So I want to bring up an idea, a bit of his characterization here, that seeing him being called kind of a shut-in, socially distant, single, a person that does a lot of things that have a tendency towards avoidance. And then also trying to teach Julian those tenets of his avoidance.
Yeah,
I see a person that actually does not want to be the one to change things, but is upset that things are not changing for the better.
Right.
Which means that his ideals do not match with his motivation.
Right. Because and that's one of the things that makes him the perfect person to be in that position, because even, you know, like, even if someone was very well-intentioned, I'm going to change things and, you know, make stuff better and whatnot. Oh, man, what kind of things would they sacrifice along the way because they have a good cause, right?
Right.
And in Yang's position, because he doesn't, he's, you know, he's lazy, right? You know, he wants to just relax and do the minimal effort in order to get his paycheck and
beat the enemy 6-1.
Right. Beat the enemy 6-1. Have some good brandy in his tea and just relax and laugh at TrueKnit, right? But
right.
Yeah.
Then we bring up the thing of the episode that it was a narrow thread, and that forces beyond Yang's control or even perception are going to continually narrow his thread until, as they said, he will be purged or he'll be forced to usurp those that rule over him.
Right.
I am actually physically upset for Yang that is the choice threshold
that
they're going to be push him towards, because it's something that you predicted a long time ago, that some point Yang was going to have to save the Alliance from itself and become basically a Caesar,
right?
Which is a villain, by the way.
And
someone who will protect the Empire, the Alliance,
because
by the way. And then save them from themselves via military, coup d'état kind of style.
Because there are points where you can be in a situation where you can choose the best option every single time and you still lose. Right?
Because you are just your own person. You can't manipulate everything.
Yeah, it's the, the grandmasters in chess that, flip their king 20 moves before checkmate or whatever, right? Because they can tell that I'm in a situation where there is no way out of it, really, right? And you can go for the lesser of two evils every single time and still end up in a messed up place, right? So how does that work for Yang? And Yang, because one of the things that they brought up with Reinhardt is the fact that, well, Kircheis is gone. How that changes things, right? And how can Frederica get, or not Frederica, but how can basically we make it so that he is still approachable and so that things don't go really bad, right? And the same is true with Yang, right? Because he's been alone like this entire time. Hildegard.
Hildegard von Mariendorf.
Right. So how does she do that with Reinhardt, right? Yang, the amount of times that it was mentioned that he was single in this episode, now a lot of the time it was for a joke, right? But the idea that he doesn't have that person. He kind of only has himself and his brandy, right? And Julian can try and be someone for him that helps keep him grounded. That he can try and do that. Kazern can try and do that, right? But when it comes right down to it, Yang still keeps himself
closed off and
alone. And in a position with the amount of stress and everything and whatnot that he's in right now and is going to continue to be pushed into, that isn't helpful.
It isn't helpful, and it's also something that is a weird double-edged sword against his enemies, because they have no direct way to manipulate him.
Right.
So in this aspect, I see a future coming here where Yang is going to be partnered up alongside with someone else who might be basically... it doesn't have to be a woman, but could be basically a form of Jessica Edwards. And there was someone that now too. There was someone that TrueKnit mentioned from a university that might be coming in. Oliviera or something like that. So I'm going to be like, who's
I'm
that?
all for awesome female characters named Oliviera or Olivier or something like that coming into the story midway through.
For
not
sure.
That we're midway through, but
But with that as well, Yang will then reach, I would say, a healthier place on his road towards kind of writing this line. And if there's anything that we know, this is just my prediction. It might not happen, but if there's one thing that we know about Yang, is that he somehow finds that thread even when it's dark and crazy all around him, he boards the underside of the enemy's flagship.
Right, exactly.
And finds a way to survive and make it through this.
Necessity is the mother of invention. And because Yang is so averse to war and things like that, he takes the options that people wouldn't necessarily expect in order to get the results that no one else could.
Yeah.
And the one thing I am a little bit worried about, though, with the Oliviera, though, is that if Fejan is talking about her in a positive light...
I think it was Trunit, though.
Oh, was it Trunit?
I'll bring it up, but
well,
I believe it was Trunit.
Either way, that doesn't make me very excited for how she might potentially affect Yang. If it turns out to be a good thing, awesome. But
I would say, if anything, I can just assume that Trunit will have some influence in the situation, but it will be something that's not so black and white.
Yeah, Trunit doesn't really worry me because I know that he's going to get his comeuppance, and when he does, it's going to be so satisfying.
Yes, for sure.
So satisfying.
Definitely.
With like, Adrian Rubinsky, not quite so sure.
Right, his is a little bit more murky.
Yeah.
To go to the Kazerne Yang conversation, though, I feel like we skipped over it a bit too quickly. There was some very interesting conversations, and I would say kind of little friendly jabs going back and forth regarding the idea, not just regarding family, but regarding the effectiveness to society one has while single versus in like a family. Not just the joy and pleasure and the perfection of marriage, which is such a like I'm married and have it all working out really well kind of thing to say.
I was so expecting it, like that's something that you don't really hear certainly nowadays, you know, in media. Usually it's the I'm married, oh it sucks, man. Like you're single, stay that way.
But in this instance here, I wanted to bring up the idea that what Kazerne is bringing up, or I have no way to pronounce his name properly. Is it Kazerne? Whatever.
Yeah,
I'll just say Kazerne. But what he's saying to Yang that I think is really interesting to bring up is he's like, you need some allies, man. You need a motivation that will carry you through dark places. One of the things that Kazerne mentioned was that he's like, the reason why you look so young still is because you don't have, you know, family. It's like, well, that's the thing. You have, that's not really selling it pretty well, man. He's like, no. My wife still looks stress-free, young, and beautiful because I'm bearing that stressful burdens. There's a little bit of, you know, man is the head of the whole thing kind of stuff there.
And just the general, like, you know, fencing of like, no, it's all great. Like, I've totally got it under control. This stress that you see on my face, that's actually a good thing. You know?
And this is, I would say, in some ways, a little bit of the bliss of love in that it covers the actual, like...
smooths a lot of things over.
The stress and pain and just... of life itself. Love's a wonderful thing. But Yang is specifically in a situation where not only does he not have any of those things, but with his avoidance tendencies, he will probably not end up in those kinds of things. So I see it as this dark kind of foreboding of Yang, do you want to die alone?
And where do you want to share your stresses? With a person or with a bottle?
Or with just your subordinates. Like, they can never really be that close to you.
Like Julian is probably the only person that really could, but even then, it's getting more closer and closer to the point where, because he's rising through the ranks, that's not as appropriate anymore.
But do you see the parallels with what they were doing with Mariendorf and Reinhardt? Kind of lamenting that
I can't be Kircheis.
I can't be his family, if that makes sense. Which was something that, you know, Oberstein was like, you shouldn't have family at this kind of position here.
Because like,
understandably.
Let's be real.
But Yang, can he really afford even to have a family of that luxury? Is this something where Kazerne is actually unintentionally dangling this wonderful jewel in front of him of, why don't you have this? This makes you wonderful. And he's like, no, I can show you like 400 to 500 people that were wonderful to society that never, got married.
Then Oberstein is in the corner just like, and that's why I got a dog.
Yes! Yes, yes, it's so true.
Like,
oh my god,
that's it. Like, no, Reinhardt family. Nope, bad idea. Someone in your position? No, definitely not. But a dog. Like, yeah, like people can kidnap your dog, but that's not quite as effective as kidnapping your family.
Right. We just need to see kind of a moment just to kind of mock it a little bit where Yang is, you know, having ousted the TrueKnit and something, and he's petting Admiral. Yeah. And he's just like, I have found
Yang,
my source of de-stress, and Admiral just...
Yang becomes the old cat lady that's like, all right, what should we do, fluffers? You know?
And then Admiral's just like, no, your battle tactics are legendary. Oh my God. I would actually love that as to be a joke at some point in the series.
That could be a dark joke too, though.
No, obviously, but I'm meaning in a funny way, and that someone is like, Yang, where does your source of genius come from? He's like, well, I have a battle tactician that I live with. His name is Admiral, and the ideas that he comes up with, goddamn, they're so good. And they're all like, they're like taking notes.
Right. I'm very close to a particular admiral. I don't want to disclose his name for his own safety, you know. But
sometimes he sleeps with me even. Oh my God! Just in, Yang sleeps with his fellow admirals.
He's the only one I can trust.
In order to get battle tactic. Oh my God.
Oh,
but y'all, This was a fantastic episode, setting up a lot of things. Things are moving slowly with regards to the intrigue side of things, but with what they foundationally kind of established from here and in the previous episode, it's about to get crazy. Yep. So y'all, thank you so much for watching this episode's reaction and discussion. If you want to see the next episode's reaction and discussion right now, though, go check out the link in the description below for our Patreon. You can get on early access there. You can watch full-length timer reactions there. And all this comes with Discord access, so you can chat with us and the community there about this show, about anime in general. And you can also talk to Jacob about the sci-fi novel that he wrote.
That's right. I wrote a sci-fi novel that very much focuses on a family. So if you're interested, it's called Battle Lines, and it's on Amazon for purchase. Link in the description down below.
Yeah, so if anything that interests you, we'll see you there. But until then, we're Semblance of Sanity. I'm Caleb.
I'm Jacob.
And we'll see you all next time.